Is not David, it is I, Jonathan. Great to see everybody. Because of your gentle heckling in our Discord chat, I thought I'd go ahead and start things off. David is getting ready, and we'll be starting in just a few minutes. But before we do, I thought that I would share a couple of little updates and draw your attention to some cool things that we got going on. So first of all, thanks for taking time. Thank you. Hopefully my usage of the here tag and alerting you from your slumbers or your work or what have you wasn't too disruptive, but thank you everybody who's here. David is an awesome member of the community. If you've been in our Discord server for any amount of time, you have likely interacted with David. And he has likely helped you out with something or showed something that's very interesting. Oh, thank you, Kelvin, about the shirt. This is available in the swag store, which I can give away for free for some folks if you want this. David does rock Mikey, it's true. And so David's going to be sharing some of his expertise. Before I bring him on, he's ready now. But before I bring him on, I just quickly wanted to draw your attention to a couple of things in our server. Man, our server has grown so much. It's crazy. It's amazing. I am so thankful that this is my job. It's kind of ridiculous that I get to interact with you all the time. And we have built this community together. It's amazing. It's huge. And it's all thanks to you all and people like David and a lot of the names I'm seeing here in the chat too. Being on, super active, super engaged, helping people out all the time is super cool to see. With all that growth, we started looking at our Discord and saying, man, we need to reorganize a little bit, do some spring cleaning. And one of the first steps, we're going to be making some changes. We're going to run that through some people first before we start doing anything too disruptive. But if you go under Ninja Live, you'll see that there's a new forums channel called Event Recordings. And I'm going to start listing all these things that we're doing because we're doing a lot of events, right? We're doing webinars, we're doing these streams, we're doing partner office hours. From this point forward, we're going to start listing all those there. So if you ever miss one of those, or if you ever want to go back and review things, we're going to have listings that supply the recording along with any links to resources. You'll see Jeff Hunter did a webinar yesterday all around patching. And if you go down to From Rage to Sage, you'll see the title listed there. And he added a whole bunch of links to things, including some things he didn't get a chance to cover during the webinar. So hopefully that'll be useful for folks. As always, if you have any feedback about how we can do things better, anything else that would be useful, let us know. We're definitely listening. Okay, let me bring David on. Hey, David, thank you so much for taking time to do this.
Glad to do it. Should be fun, hopefully. Just like everything I do with ADHD, all the prep was very last minute. So, you know, that's how it goes.
Oh, man, that's, you know, it's real. We're doing things that way. It's definitely real. You need so little preparation, I would imagine, too. I mean, if you go to our script share in the Discord server, you're also active in the dojo and other places, too. You post a lot of scripts there and you share a ton. You also are involved in people posting to review my script and are asking for pointers. You're constantly responding to that. So thank you for all of that. You and Mikey and a lot of other folks that I wanted to give some shout outs to before I forget their names so they don't feel too bad about it. We got J-Rod, Luke Skyscraper, Anti-Venom, of course, W. Nichols. You know, it's very cool to see everybody sharing all these scripts. And so we decided, hey, why don't we bring you on to share? Maybe there's some folks that are seeing things from the sidelines and they want to get more involved. They see how active that is and they see how useful it is to be creating some PowerShell scripting to supplement and augment some of the Ninja capabilities. So we wanted to have you on to kind of walk through some basic pointers, but also, even more importantly, I think, kind of like your thought process behind how you're approaching solving some issue challenges or problems you have. You're wanting to solve them. You know that PowerShell can be a good way to do that, but there's some considerations that you typically apply. And so, yeah, interested to have you on and sharing your knowledge. With that.
Well, I won't pretend that this is in any specific order. Someone, I think Benjamin, asked me to share my name pronunciation. The last name is Szpunar, which is really simple if you think of the English word spoon and the English word R and just run them together, like with no special emphasis or anything. The Z is silent, so it's very confusing if you haven't heard it and you see it. It's like if you see it, you can't pronounce it, and if you hear it, you can't spell it. So it's kind of like whichever you get first is the is the easier one, if there is an easy with the name of the Z. It is Polish in origin. I was born here in the U.S., as was my dad, but my grandmother came over from Poland many years ago. So I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm not great at organizing them into a particularly great order. And because of the last minuteness, I have notes, but they're not in any order either. So,
well, you're
I
in
will
luck
cover a couple different things.
Yeah, you're in luck because that's that can be my job, and also all of our helpful folks in the chat. So Kelvin, for instance, before we get into the really getting technical with it, he's asking about your origin story, your Polish origins. We got that. Now he wants to know about your PowerShell origins. Do you have anything that like kind of brought you to it, or how did you start getting really deep down into PowerShell?
Well, my dad was born in Hamtramck, Michigan, and I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. My dad grew up in Chicago, and I grew up in the Indianapolis, Indiana area because my parents moved here when I was 1, and I've never left. So, not much of a, Polish origin story other than I can occasionally recognize Polish when when it's spoken versus other languages. We had a Polish missionary come to church and sing some worship songs in Polish, and I walked in late, didn't realize they were from Poland until I walked in. I'm like, hey, that sounds like Polish, and it was right, which was kind of cool. Beyond that, I don't know from a PowerShell standpoint. I got into it probably because of Exchange management many years ago, back in the Exchange 2007 days when they switched from Exchange 2003 that was all GUI managed into Exchange 2007, where the GUI was literally just running PowerShell under the hood. Programming originally started back in the 90s when my programming started in the 90s when I started with QBasic and then moved into Perl. And so eventually did a lot of Perl and MySQL, moved into PowerShell because of Windows and doing the sysadmin stuff. Then kind of dropped it for a while, used it off and on here and there, but didn't really use it a ton, kind of as needed from administration. As we moved into Microsoft 365, did a lot of PowerShell to control mailboxes and the cloud stuff, but less server administration since we don't have any Exchange servers we run anymore, and no one else really should either. But from there, I stopped writing PowerShell when we were on a competing platform for 6 to 7 years, where running PowerShell was a big pain. Like getting the script into the system to actually deploy and run was very frustrating. And after moving to Ninja just over a year ago, discovered how easy it was to actually put scripts into Ninja and run them and do things with custom fields. And so having moved from senior engineer, started with this company in 2010, bought it at the end of 2017. Owning a company sometimes requires a lot more than just writing PowerShell. So I've been distracted for a number of years, and PowerShell has been a good distraction from the distractions, back to something that's a little bit more, managing PowerShell is easier than managing people. So my team is doing more of the people management than I am. So I'm trying to be more of a support role where I can, and also when I need to be distracted from something I really need to get done, I will go to PowerShell and get something else done that's more fun. So
I don't think you're alone there.
Not always the best reasons.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at Mikey and Kelvin and some others.
Yeah, yes, they are also owners who do a lot of PowerShell, so they have figured out some secrets. My goal is to be able to do more of the tech again at some point, but it's sometimes the demands are what they are. So from a scripting standpoint, I've really kind of dove back into PowerShell because of the great community and team and help in learning stuff. And I'm actually pretty decent at Google. I'd listed as an expertise in terms of learning how to resolve issues and solve problems. And I've just played with Linux and PowerShell and Windows for so long that it does feel like some things, even though they take me some time and are difficult to solve, I know I can. Like, it takes me more time than I think it should, but I'm also confident in being able to find the answers generally. So sometimes I just beat my head against it until everything works. So yes, David's goal is to be like Mikey, says the chat. So yeah, pretty much. So we'll see when I get there.
Well, David, thank you for that. And yeah, great background. I'm thank you, Kelvin, for suggesting that. It's always good and interesting to hear people, their journey and how they got to things. So David, for this, want to be mindful of your time and everything. I know you got some cool things to share, and you mentioned there's no specific order, but you know, one thing we had talked about was maybe using one of your recent scripts as an example to kind of walk through your thought process in terms of, you know, here's a specific need that you want to address, and maybe in walking through it, we'll kind of highlight some of the considerations that come into play. You know, some of the things that maybe learnings you've come across, like, you know, common gotchas that maybe you've avoided, or things that you now take into account that maybe you didn't in your early days. Just sharing some things like that. And then definitely want to make sure that we give folks some time to submit some questions, and maybe we'll fire those at you in some rapid fire Q&A at the end. Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the script that was kind of selected for me and I didn't push back on because I didn't have any better way to select it was this recent Screen Connect management, location, logging, investigation, and uninstallation script around, trusted versus untrusted instances, because there's, it's one thing, and I know there's a script out there that's been posted for a while that uninstalls all Screen Connect instances and even has a way to have, trusted instances that you don't want to install if you happen to run Screen Connect yourself, which was great. But I wanted to do a little bit more logging with this in this specific instance where if we have clients that have Screen Connect from other vendors or other providers on them, I wanted to know what they were before I went ahead and ripped them out. So I started with the original script. It was like, okay, just rip it all out, and expanded it and put functions in instead of just a top to bottom script. Did some logging to Ninja custom fields, added some flags, switches, parameters to control them, which you can use through the Ninja script variables or through parameters that you pass in. So just kind of cleaned it up, made it a little bit more functional with the ability to do some monitoring. I'm not even 100% happy with it. There's still some changes that I would prefer to make to it. But I also took longer to start on this than I wanted to because of the urgency of the security issue. And I also did it in a day. So I started it, I think, last Thursday morning or mid morning. And I think I was done by like 9 p.m. So it took longer than I wanted to. It was just one of those things where that's kind of how I get things done. Is I hyper focus on it and just beat my head against it. Google search, figure out, test, iterate over and over again until it finally does what I want it to do, or it doesn't, or it's good enough. And so it's just hard to stop, which does mean working late sometimes or not stopping until it's done. But I had something that worked, and I've updated a couple times since then with a few tweaks. First time I published it, I forgot to uncomment the line that actually did the uninstall, because of course I didn't want to uninstall it on my test machine so that I could test it, keep testing the logic. So I updated that and I've posted a couple more times. This event drove me to post stuff on GitHub. So I actually have a public GitHub that I finally got around to this week.
Yeah, we should share the link to that. I shared the link to the Screen Connect script. It goes to our Discord, to the script share there. For anyone who's somehow watching without being a member of the Discord, you should join and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, if you're cool with it, I mean, maybe we can dive into some of those things and get a little bit more specific with some of those improvements you were talking about. One takeaway that I think already is a cool one that I'm hearing is that you're rarely starting from scratch. And this is something I've seen a lot of people kind of mentioning. PowerShell, there's so much, what's so cool about this and so cool about our community and everything is that people are sharing things. So often you're kind of seeing what's out there already, what's out there that you can modify, that you can tweak to your own. So rarely is it started from scratch. It's just getting an understanding of how things work and the pieces that you can play with, and how you can leverage other people's hard work already.
Yep, absolutely. I almost never start from scratch, even if it's my own code or if it's a couple lines from somebody in Discord that posts something I didn't think of. Original ideas are not my specialty. I like to take stuff that's out there and remix it. So by the end, a lot of times the script might look a little bit more like something that I started, but it almost never started there. So part of what I've done here, so I usually find a problem that's bugging me or a need that somebody has and I haven't seen somebody write a complete solution for it many times, or a security issue where there doesn't seem to be an automated solution out there yet, or not easy to deploy in an automated fashion. I usually try to, like I said, start with another script that's out there. And for example, recently there was the Microsoft released a script to fix the knowledge base article ending in 4441, where the Windows recovery environment needed to be expanded or to 250 megabytes of free space. Microsoft posted a script for that, but I really couldn't use it because it prompted you in the middle of the script run to say, hey, do you want to actually do the thing? And you had to respond interactively. I'm like, well, that doesn't really work with Ninja very well. So I tweaked it to not to take a flag at the top to determine whether it did anything, and then log the custom fields and stuff. So really, that was Microsoft script with a couple of wrappers around it. So that sort of thing was a little bit faster and easier. Adding the custom fields took a little longer. Many times, custom channel vendors provide deployment scripts, and they're not always custom for every RMM. So being able to add like custom fields and things like that to make it a little more flexible with Ninja specifically can help. And then I find some cool stuff and usually bring those cool things from script to script for the next ones to make it a little bit easier. So in this particular instance, what makes something a good candidate for automation for me is I don't want to log into clients' computers because that interrupts them and I have to talk to them. And I mean, talking to clients is a good thing. We absolutely want to provide great service and talk to them, but we don't necessarily want to interrupt what they're doing all the time. And it's time consuming to do that on a large basis, which is why scripting is so powerful. So sometimes I'm like, well, I really want to do this thing, but I really just want to like automate it so I don't have to deal with it, or I need to log something or look at something across the board in a across all endpoints easily. Or it's a security issue that we need to rapidly update everywhere. So in this specific case, I took the uninstall script and I added a bunch of parameters to it, which over time, I added these parameters as I discovered a need for them. So I didn't really start from a holistic standpoint of, hey, let's just add a bunch of parameters and do all these things. It is very much, okay, I have the script, let me back into the different things I want to do with it. In this case, the script is actually at the bottom because if you don't know, PowerShell very heavily runs in top to bottom fashion. Hence, most scripting languages are that way, and since they're not compiled. So if you don't define a function before you use it, it doesn't work. So I have a section at the beginning that defines all my functions, and then at the actual script logic is at the bottom where I actually start the process and then call those functions throughout. And then I do some custom field output. So in this case, I try to do two things with scripts. One, I try to make them as generic as possible while still being specific to my use case and Ninja specifically. So I'm happy when my scripts can be run by someone else, have the comments or instructions to be able to let them figure out what needs to be done. And also, if you can run it without an RMM, like if you just open PowerShell as an admin on a machine and run the script, I'd like you to be able to do all the functions with parameters you feed in via the command line. I'd like to be able to use script variables in Ninja if you can. Custom fields ideally would be optional. So, hey, define the custom field names that you want to be used, and the script will figure out for my newer scripts whether that custom field exists or not, or if you don't define it, it doesn't try to do it and give you errors. So just kind of tries to be flexible and work with only what's there, just to make it a little bit more user-friendly. I went ahead and even documented some of the the switches here, which is sometimes difficult to spend the time to do. But I also try to make scripts that are designed to be public so that someone else can read it and use it. Even if I don't share it, doing that kind of pushes me a little bit to go the extra mile and make it documented so I can understand it. I can track versions. I can do the things that that I need to later. And sometimes that also makes it useful for others. I try to define configuration at the top of the script. So here, here's the 3 custom fields that this script would ideally use. If you set these to empty strings or you delete the variables entirely, the script will just not use custom fields for any output. The minimum version setting here, I'm defining this because we know from ConnectWise what the minimum version is to be not vulnerable on a server, and newer versions are certainly, there is a newer version already out from this, so it actually uses a version cast with PowerShell version type to figure that out and do a comparison later. And then I actually use this NinjaRMM script variables block. I've posted this as a separate snippet in script share before, and I took some time, a few hours, to whip this out one day a few months back. And if you're familiar with Ninja script variables, they let you define what variables that you can fill out as you run a script with defaults or custom. You can have checkboxes, text fields, dropdowns, and so forth. And those variables get passed into the script as environment variables. So $env : environment variable name. The problem with that is switches get passed in as the variables appear in the parameter string. So in this case, there's a single string, and then there's a bunch of switches, which switches are just Boolean values where they're false by default and they're true if they exist. So if you pass just the uninstall switch or parameter with no value, the fact that uninstall exists makes that variable true. If it doesn't exist, it's false. With Ninja custom script variables, you are the checkboxes actually define the environment variable as the string true, not the value $true or truth value. So because of that, and because I wanted the environment variables to actually coincide with my script variables, I wrote this little process that I just pop at the top of pretty much every script I write now, where it looks up these the switches that are actually being defined by the script. It takes any environment variables that match those names, and it if there are script variables defined in environment variables, it just updates the parameter to be that value. So later on in the script, I can just use these variables from the parameter list, and it will the script variables from Ninja will have overwritten them if they're provided. Otherwise, they're ignored. So that's kind of what this fancy little section does here. I've defined a little bit of setup in this script at the top before my functions, because I have some functions that use some of these variables. It's kind of a lazy way to do it, but again, rapid development in this case with security being the issue. I went ahead and defined, some registry keys around whether the system is 64-bit or not, or is there an uninstall registry key that's separate for the 32-bit in the 64-bit system. Define the safe instances of Screen Connect if you have any. If you provide them, it splits the string that's provided on the parameter line up here that's comma separated. It provides those. It splits those into an array of safe instances, just to make it easier to input those on the command line. I actually, in my own personal script, I actually define the instances down here. Obviously, I don't share those because those have my instance IDs in them, but I hard code the instances that are shared because I don't want to pass them in every time. From there, I define a couple of array lists, and I do this so that I don't need to use the plus equal adjustment to append new items to an array, which really recreates the array. And if you'll see, Mikey especially will happily tell you where where you shouldn't use that if you ever post a script into the script share. And so I now always take the care to do things with an actual array list or collection rather than using the plus equal to when using arrays. I still will cheat and do it with numbers or strings from time to time. So I want to go ahead and I actually have a logging function that I I initialize my counts up here because I do some count checking here, and then I actually check I have a very verbose option that basically outputs more stuff. So I don't do this often. I actually did this for the first time in the script, where you do if you do write-verbose instead of write-host, it only outputs if the verbose flag is set in the script. So on the command line, you can type -verbose as a parameter, or you can internally set the verbose preference inside of the script. So we basically can turn that on with the very verbose flag. Passing it in Ninja was a little weird to me, so I just separated it out to a different parameter. I used very verbose as a debugging option in this case. So a lot of times when I was debugging, I wanted to see everything the script was doing. And so it didn't really need to be there in the grand scheme of things, but I wanted to see a lot more information if I turned on the very verbose setting. And that's why there's a lot of write verbose instead of write host that I then comment out later, which is the way I traditionally done things. So I'm trying to improve my processes a little bit. So from a function standpoint, the functions I defined, one is a set Ninja custom checkbox. This basically does the logic of checking the checkbox field, the custom fields in Ninja, and does thanks Mikey. I usually do the commandlet binding at the top, and I don't know why I didn't on this one, and I always forget why, because I'm usually copying from an old script. So that's probably why it didn't work on this one, is because I didn't copy it over and I didn't realize that was the reason. Mikey mentioned if you put commandlet binding with some square brackets and parentheses around it at the top of your script before the parameter, the param list, it will add things like handling the -verbose and -debug tags for you, which is slick. And learning those things is kind of the part of the process of, over time, you pick up those extra things from others and other people's scripts, and sometimes you Google them or figure out the Microsoft documentation and be like, why does it actually work this way? Why doesn't it work this way? Sometimes is the answer. In fact, it's this commandlet binding that I have at the top of this function that I should also put at the top of the script, is what Mikey's saying, because it does work. Parameters work very similarly in scripts and in functions. They have their own parameters that can be passed in, defined exactly the same way. So I do have that here. I just didn't have it at the top of the script. In this case, I am, Mikey could do the whole series of how to write PowerShell like a ninja, Robert. In this case, I'm doing some checking here because, again, I wanted to provide the ability to not use custom fields if you don't want to. And so in this case, I'm passing in the custom field name at the end of the script when I call this value, whether I want it to be true or false. And then I'm checking to see if the custom field checkbox script variable name is blank or not. So I'm actually, if it's blank or it doesn't exist, then don't write to the custom field, because that'll error out because you don't have a custom field or you didn't want to use a custom field. So I didn't want to call this Ninja property set without being sure that the custom field was there and defined, or at least that you wanted to use it from the definition at the top in the config. The log client details, this is actually very similar to, I think I pulled this most recently from the Microsoft, that script I mentioned earlier that Microsoft did, where they just did like a log function that they built in. The reason for this is so that you can output to multiple destinations. So in this case, basically it's a write host function, but in this case it is outputting to a custom field, or its ability is also to output to a custom field in addition to yeah, I'm great at losing my train of thought. So in this case, it's actually accumulating an array of items that will be output both to the host output and into the custom field if you have the custom field defined. So rather than just outputting write host in real time, I'm collecting an array of what the output should be and then outputting that at the end separately. And in this case, I added a flag in here to whether it was a part of a trusted or untrusted instance, so we can collect the trusted instance information and the untrusted instance information and show that separately, one after the other. 100%, the quickest way to get answers is to post the wrong solution. That holds true on the internet in general. I'm hoping that that's why all the memes have so many typos and misspellings in them out there, because it drives me nuts. And I'm assuming the fact that it drives me nuts and I comment about it is, the interaction that people want from writing them. So, such is life. I choose to believe that instead of that people are really that bad at spelling and grammar. But I know the truth in my heart. I just don't want to acknowledge it. So there's a couple of this function I actually added near the end of the work I was doing. I don't have the acknowledgement in here. It might be at the top. There was someone it might have been Jesse Connor. I have to remember for sure. Certainly got some tips from him in a couple areas and some others, both in the MSP Geek Discord and the NinjaOne Discord around the Screen Connect stuff. And so there was a script that was posted that had a way to go in and pull some information from the local config file for a Screen Connect install. So inside the actual program files folder where Screen Connect is installed to, you can read the config files. In this case, there's a client override .en-us if you're in the US, .resources. And if it's a file, it actually pulls in this is really clever and not my work, but it pulls in that information using an object of type system resources resource reader, which is a .NET type that pulls it in and pulls the application title out of the config file. That's often the name of the vendor that has Screen Connect, because they usually you customize the title bar of the application in Screen Connect to be your company name, for example, and so it gives you some insight into what that Screen Connect instance might be named in a logical way. Or I have found that that's not always visible in some older versions of Screen Connect, and I haven't gone back to debug with older versions, so it is unknown by default if there is no instance name it can find if the file doesn't exist. And then I went in and using that example, I went into the Screen Connect install, a newer one, and pulled the Screen Connect, the system config. I actually have a double backslash here that shouldn't be there. So I found a bug while we were talking through things here. So I went into the system config file and realized that I can also pull the XML out of that and find the relay server statement, which also doesn't exist in some older versions of Screen Connectors in a different location. So this doesn't always get the value, but in some cases with newer versions, it actually pulls the relay server, which is like relay.screenconnect.com or subdomain.relay.screenconnect.com, which can be another way to help identify the server. I'm pretty sure there's a way somewhere to find some additional information. I haven't been through the effort to go find all of it yet. Again, this sets to unknown if it can't find that. And then it also looks at the number from the Screen Connect Windows client.exe executable file. It uses the file version info and pulls the file version out, and then it creates a custom object with this additional information we've collected and returns that. So when this function is called, it pulls all that information if it's found out and passes it back, so we can add that to the logs. The remove Screen Connect processes literally just goes through and has a fancy way of gathering all the processes on the system that match Screen Connect with wildcards. And if it's a safe instance, don't kill it. If it's untrusted instance, kill it. So this just basically lets us kill the executable from running, whether it's a service or started live. It just kills the Screen Connect host on the system, or nothing to terminate otherwise. And again, it log client details, so it specifically notes that the process was running, that it was terminated with the process IP and instance ID and so forth. So a lot of this is just looping through to find those and kill them or not kill them and log about them. The uninstall Screen Connect function does exactly what it says on the tin. The parameters, it accepts an instance ID and optionally and the install. So this install is the details from the registry about the installation. And then if there's an uninstall string in that install, it will loop through log information about that instance that we know from the registry and from later on from the info above. Then it will go through and basically do two things. One, it'll kill the processes using the function we just defined above. Then it will grab the Windows installer information from the registry and assign it to this package variable if it's and it basically passes this through to uninstall package force. So this basically says uninstall the MSI installation, and then gets the status. If it's equal to uninstalled, then hey, the uninstall attempt was completed. If it's and then we decrement the count of the uninstall instances, so we know that the totals at the end. The out null basically doesn't output this count to the screen as you do it, because PowerShell likes to output stuff by default. Otherwise, this is what I had originally, where you literally are starting a process that runs. Yeah, I changed it because of you, Mikey. I saw you post about it the other day. It originally was this, which is start the command.exe process, pass it the uninstall string, which is defined up here, which is basically uninstall string from the registry plus quiet and no restart. And this usually includes the MSI exec in front of it. It usually works. It doesn't always. I have had some errors running the git package and uninstall package, probably due to version issues and stuff. So I basically try that first. If it doesn't work, I try the MSI exec. If that doesn't work, then eventually I'm like, well, we attempted to do it. It either failed based on the exit code of the MSI exec, or it succeeded, and we logged both of those. And then we're done. I had some trouble diagnostic stuff I've commented out and left in here just in case. Let's see. So those are all the functions. So that's really the gist of it. The actual script itself, when it runs, calls those functions from here. So installed software. Again, I stole this from an old script that I got from somewhere else that I've tweaked a little bit. That basically loops through. This is a much simplified version. It basically goes through the registry keys that are defined earlier and finds anything that matches Screen Connect that's installed. For each of those installs, it loops through, tries to find it finds the instance IDs that are defined, outputs a bunch of information about it. In this instance line would be multiple lines of output to the log, so we can see what it is. It defines the software as a service existing. This is not in the first version, but I added this a bit later because we did have some clients that had ScreenConnect.com instances, which were protected by ConnectWise first. And so I wanted to add those as optionally trusted alongside the trusted instance IDs that we've added. And so this is saying anywhere the relay server that we find above matches anything -relay.screenconnect.com, first of all, define the is_SAS variable so that we know that it's a SAS version. And then we can optionally, if the flag is set to trust SAS, we can mark that as trusted, even though it's not in the instance list. So we can trust in two different ways there. And this basically loops through, gets the information about them, gets the config details. With the instance ID, we regex out of the display name because it's always, put the instance ID in parentheses. So we just rip that out and add some warnings about whether it's vulnerable or not based on the minimum version and the SAS trust information. We determine that if it is a trusted instance by instance name match, then we add that it's a trusted instance and log those details. And if it's SAS and we don't want to trust, so this basically handles whether we do want to trust SAS or we don't independently, and we log that information and the fact that it's a ConnectWise SAS version versus being trusted by the instance ID, or it's anything else, in which case it's an untrusted install. And so this just passes the false, the log client details with false means it's untrusted, with true means it is trusted, so it can determine what to output based on the trusted or untrusted status. Otherwise, nothing found. So output that to the log instead. And then we summarize the custom, the details in the custom fields. So we've incremented or decremented the trusted and untrusted instance counts as we make changes to the system or uninstall or counted what we encounter. And so we basically, based on those values, we log details and we update the checkboxes if they exist, and we have defined those fields to determine, say, hey, this computer has one or more trusted instances, checkbox yes. This system has one or more untrusted instances, checkbox yes or no, depending on if the count is greater than 0. And then how many it outputs a separate log file if we've terminated any processes, so we get a count of that. And then the custom field, this basically adds the client, the trusted and untrusted log entries that we've built up, those two arrays, concatenates them together, adds an extra line break, and then if the custom field exists and we aren't just updating the checkboxes, it will either optionally clear the custom field we've already, at the top of the script, we've read in the value of this custom field, so we can basically append the information to the end of it and output the entirety, or which is right here, or we just delete it and we output all the lines that we've built in this array using the set piped, which preserves the new lines that we've added in. This is the new line feed and everything that we've added with the separator, and then the output a verbose entry if we don't update any of the custom fields, just because we know, hey, we didn't update the custom field because you said update checkboxes only. If you don't want to lose the log information in that custom field, or it's already there and not changing. So just a few, I would change some of the logic and some of the output in slightly different ways that I'm not 100% happy with, but it's relatively straightforward. And the output from this, I can show you on my computer here. Basically, with a trusted instance, it looks like this, where the zoom in a little bit on here. So it found a trusted install. With this instance ID, you can see that it's my remote, it's our remote control system with our relay server. Here's the install path to where the files are, just the publisher of the file, which should always be Screen Connect software in most cases, but might be ConnectWise or something else somewhere in there. It pulls the install date and version out of the registry and the file information. And then it would it would mention that it's vulnerable if it is an older version and it's not the SAS version. And then it's, found one trusted and didn't find any untrusted ones installed. So you can match on some, under devices, you can create device groups that match on some of this output. And then the fact that these checkboxes are set to true or false to say, hey, is there an untrusted Screen Connect installed? Easily see all of those and be able to run the uninstall. I have run into a couple of instances where including the uninstall flag isn't actually running the uninstall, even though it says it is. I haven't figured out why yet, even with the MSI and the package management. But the cool thing is with Screen Connect, at least, if you go into patching software inventory in Ninja and you check the box next to any Screen Connect instance, you can click uninstall and confirm, and it will almost every time pretty much just uninstall Screen Connect right away. So it's actually very easy and flexible to do that directly within Ninja if you want to manually. So that's kind of the whole script top to bottom. Part of what I wanted to do with the script and all the ones I write is make them idempotent, which is a really fun word that basically means you can run it as many times as you want to, and it doesn't make changes that it doesn't need to because it knows the state of the system. This is a little different than like an install script. Like if I were deploying, I have an example here of like my deploy AnyBot agent script that I actually redid recently with a lot more flexibility. But the cool thing, like it checks to see if AnyBot's already there, and it only installs if it's not installed. Or with an extra flag, it can also upgrade. And I actually have a function now that pulls the current AnyBot client agent version from their URL they provide. They now have a new single unchanging URL for the current agent version, but that returns the version from the file name in the redirect. So I grab the redirect location header without actually downloading the file and use a regex to pull the version number out of the file name, and then I can compare the version installed on the computer, if it is installed, the version from the cloud, and easily determine if it needs to be upgraded or not. So it's a deploy. I can either deploy if not installed at all, or upgrade if it's at an old version, or force the install regardless of whether it's at the current version or not. So all of those three options are variable, but by default, it only installs if it's not installed. So we can run the script over and over again, and if the agent is installed already, it will just quit and say, yep, already installed, bye, rather than trying to reinstall over and over and using up system resources and potentially causing issues from reinstalling over top of an existing installation. And that's what how I use idempotent definition is. I want to be able to run the script anytime, and it will detect the state that the system is in and not do something it doesn't. Desired state scripting is like Mikey mentioned in chat. So
very cool.
That's the over. Like I have a few other notes here around version control and editors and stuff, but I know we're pretty much at the original time, but definitely have time for I have time for questions and other things if anybody wants to stick around and talk further.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, David, for hopefully that deep dive was interesting for folks and you're picking up a lot. obviously you're covering a ton there, and depending on people's knowledge and everything, maybe there's some stuff that went over their heads, or maybe the stuff they already know. So I am not a technical person, and I was just thinking about the title of our stream here, how to write PowerShell like a ninja. And I was trying to think based off what you were saying. I've got like a few tenets, like a few like core things of maybe like what does it mean to write a PowerShell script like a ninja, or like do it well, right? Let me toss them at you and see if they're on the mark or not. You tell me, and then also tell me if there's any others that you would add, and then let's get into the Q&A. So this will also give folks who have still on with us and everything, if you have specific questions, go ahead and drop them in while I'm rattling these things off. Okay, so how to write PowerShell like a ninja. Here's what I got from you, David Szpunar. Did I get it right?
You did.
Of all, your name? Perfect. All right. Use the resources around you. Steal, ask questions, leverage others' expertise, and work, always with attribution and thanks, of course. So that's number one. Be great with the resources around you. Number two, don't be too proud. Ask for help. Remember that nothing's perfect, that you shouldn't tinker with things to the point of like making a perfect thing before you share it for feedback or for requests. Like, we're all learning together. You're finding bugs as fresh eyes are always good. So don't be too proud to share and get some other info. Maybe test early and often. I like testing is a whole nother subject we could probably get into. And then the other two I'm kind of interested in, like the documenting part of it. Like you were mentioning at the top of it, you're writing scripts for at the outset of, okay, you're going to use this personally, but you're also doing it in a way where you're adding in all the documentation within the script, so another person can dive in, immediately see what's doing what, and then utilize it themselves. And you, in addition to that being just an awesome, great thing to do that shows that you're just an amazing human being. You kind of alluded to that helping you out too. Like it kind of like helps give you some parameters, or keeps you honest, or it helps the quality of your scripts just doing that. So it's not just a selfless thing. It's actually helping you too.
I would rarely do this much documentation if I wasn't sharing it.
Sure.
And so the push to, like I said, the push to make it shareable and get it to a point where it is at least shareable, even if it's not perfect. Again, I try to build this with other people in mind, because it helps me to, helps force me to think about it. Like, how should I structure this in a way that other people will understand it? And therefore me in the future, when I come back to this code, like I might someday and want to redo something, how I understand it. Because in the moment, I think every other programmer out there, is always 100% confident, at least for the first few years of writing anything, that that you will absolutely remember everything that you did in the last 10 hours that you spent writing the script. And as soon as you come back, it will be right there in your brain, just like you never left it. And that is 100% wrong. And so the faster you learn that and actually write comments and notes and details, the faster you can pick it up later. So I don't know. Yes, like Mikey says, his public scripts are way more commented and documented than the internal stuff. And same. And in fact, most of this documentation at the top of both of these scripts is stuff that I added after the fact. I didn't put all the comments and notes at the top until I had all the parameters and I had it working and tested, because of course a lot of functionality is going to change as it develops. And so the documentation is just a final, here's the basics of what this does and how it works, and not something that I necessarily write as I go on an ongoing basis. So yeah, I think that covers a really good list of things. Don't be afraid to share your code. People will probably correct you if you did something wrong, or they might update it to be better, or fix problems that you had with it and you didn't know you had with it, or performance issues. They pretty much, at least in the Ninja Discord community and most of the other ones I've seen and I'm involved with, because I wouldn't stay involved in one that wasn't, it's a very friendly environment, and nobody's going to yell at you because you did something stupid. They're just going to help you do better so you can learn and do better next time.
Yeah, as long as Kelvin's not poking around, he may
Well,
yell.
yeah, I
I don't
didn't
know if he's
mention the
still around.
CFTP Discord. The yeah, some things just from an editor standpoint, like don't use PowerShell ISE anymore. There's a lot of online stuff that says to do that, and it's wrong because it's old and discontinued. But there's a lot of info out there on that, so much better to use something like Visual Studio Code, which is by Microsoft and cross-platform, and the minimal interface makes it feel like it's not very powerful when you start using it. Because I felt that way. I tried a couple false starts and kind of didn't really like it at first, and kind of used Google a couple times and be like, hey, let's go figure out how to actually use Visual Studio Code and what some of the features are, and install some extensions like the Git extensions, and the PowerShell extension especially is a must-have that can do some pretty cool stuff. And so you can do a lot more with it than it looks like. It's just a lot of that configuration is hidden behind text files and stuff. It's a little more complicated to get fully tweaked, but it is pretty powerful with all the extensions. There's an Azure extension. You can run all sorts of fancy Azure stuff, directly publish Azure functions to Azure. And there's a really cool thing I was going to mention called Codium, which you've probably heard of GitHub Copilot, which came out long before the Copilot that Microsoft has everywhere else, which is basically a coder helper. For about $10 a month, you can get like an AI to help you with coding, which is pretty cool. I do not pay for that because I'm too cheap and have other things to pay for. So I use an app called Codium, Codeium, easy to find online. They have a free version for personal use. They have team versions if you really have a whole team working on stuff, but it's kind of like the same idea where you can chat. They have an extension in Visual Studio Code you can install. You sign in, and you can now ask essentially ChatGPT that has access to your code questions about your code, or say, hey, write a PowerShell function to do this, and insert it directly into Visual Studio Code. It's not perfect. Like, you can't just run everything that it has. Sometimes it won't even work. It hallucinates like AI does. But it's often an easy way to be like, hey, I need to write a function that does this, and I'd have to go Google like 10 different things to figure out the exact syntaxes and function calls and all these things. And instead, I can just have ChatGPT or Codium generate a basic foundation for this, and then I can review it and tweak it and adjust it and kind of use that to bounce ideas off of, rather than having it I have to start from scratch. And it just saves a lot of time. It doesn't save you from having to know PowerShell. It just helps you to be more productive. And it's a pretty slick tool. And I like there's some good stuff. The Microsoft documentation on PowerShell is relatively solid if you learn how to read it. Sometimes it's a little too verbose. I would know because everything I write is too verbose. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Version control. I just set up GitHub for my scripts this week, so it's not required to actually do scripts and write them and share them. But I do recommend that you at least put your scripts into something like a OneDrive folder. So at the very least, OneDrive is handling your versioning, and you can go back to old versions if you need to, because you will at some point delete something or type something you don't want, or break something that you can't undo. I do recommend, like I just started playing with GitHub Desktop rather than using the built-in Visual Studio Code Git tools, because the GitHub Desktop app is a little more uncomplicated than the GitHub integration inside of a Visual Studio Code, although it exists and it's quite powerful. So there's a little bit of just kind of add things simply.
So this is what,
as Michael said, Szpunar docs plus equal very verbose. Yeah. In the chat. Absolutely.
So Mike Ogre, you may recognize him as, had a good comment about he's hesitant. He feels like a lot of times his scripts are very elementary. And this actually goes back to another one of the tenets of like a ninja, right? Like I mean, would you agree that actually simplicity is not like a bad thing? Like when you're scripting, I mean, should you be looking for the easiest and most simple way to do something?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's very much the way Linux was designed was to chain small purpose specific tools and commands together to get an output. And each of those individual tools is very simple. And, you come out with a very complex solution over time. And PowerShell, because of its object-oriented nature, makes chaining those things together even easier in a lot of ways, assuming you can understand the way some of the PowerShell and pipeline stuff works, which takes a little bit of brain bending sometimes to get there. So reading and playing with it's a good way to figure that out. But yes, the simpler the better, really, in a lot of ways. And honestly, the scripts tend to get complicated and longer when you add extra things like error checking and documentation and options and parameters. And those are great to have, but unless you have a solid script that does the thing you need it to do, adding all those things doesn't really get you anything. I have lots of scripts that just do a single thing really pretty well and don't error enough to matter. And so I just have them in the script library and can run them as needed for monitoring or updates and things. So it's adding all those extra things. One, takes a lot of knowledge and updating. Like I said, even using write verbose, I didn't use much until literally the script. Comment out the right host statements, when you're done debugging and they don't output anymore. Like that's Git is very complicated as a tool, on the command line especially. So Git is very confusing. To me, my brain doesn't work with it very well. So I find that frustrating. I've objected to using it for a while. I've used the Fossil version control system, which is a little simpler and was easier for me to understand. And I think playing with that for a while at the command line eventually helped me understand Git a little bit better, even though it's a little bit reversed. So I'm kind of dabbling in Git again. And you can also completely wipe out all your code really easily in Git if you type the wrong command because you don't understand it. So don't play with it on code you care about without a backup.
Oh man. Well, David, we've been talking for almost an hour now. So, and I know you're super busy. I was keeping an eye out for specific questions. Maybe we can take that on to like another session, or obviously, I mean, there's Discord, right? Like you can go into the review my script and specific questions. But before we sign off here, I have been frantically grabbing some additional links and would love any additions that you want to add to this. So, helpful resources, right? I always want to end with some things like that. Let's see if this is going to work for me. So the first thing is Mikey mentioned, hey, speaking of Discord, there's a PowerShell Discord. I grabbed the invite for that so people can check that out. A book that I know a lot of people have cited all the time is PowerShell and a Month of Lunches. Don't know your opinion on that, but I've dropped that in there. And then also, last thing, we recently got Adam Bertram, who has Adam the Automator is his blog. Back in our ITX event in the fall, I think November. Man, it feels like forever ago. He did a very kind of like intro to PowerShell training video, and I dropped a link to folks so they can see the videos for that too. But any other resources you think are good things to point out?
Google. For sure. Type PowerShell and anything else, and you'll probably get more information. Some of it correct, some of it not, than you can handle. But usually, if you read enough, you can find a solution. Obviously, with Stack Overflow, I don't know that I jump. I mean, specific resources. I usually rely on the community in the scripting and review my script channels to look over and tell me when I screwed something up or completely missed something. So that it's not really, or even comments. If you posted something in the script share, you can comment on those threads, post a better version of it, post a fix for it. Would be great, or tell me how it's broken. So that stuff is as far as resources. I honestly don't know that I have a huge list because I've gathered this over so much time, that I've not gone through the PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. I've heard it's great. I have not felt like going down the rabbit hole of the PowerShell Discord, and also have not felt smart enough to have questions worthy of their attention, which is maybe maybe where some people are here in the Ninja Discord. Like that sounds like where some people might be in the Ninja Discord. Is I don't want to share something because it looks dumb, or I don't know what I'm doing. A little bit of reticence there to jump in and share. And I probably I feel that way sometimes. But I know the people. Yeah, I know the people in the Ninja Discord, and I know that they're going to be loving and helpful, or they're going to troll me, one of the two, which is the same, really, the same outcome. And they're probably going to give me a better way to do it. Maybe the PowerShell PowerShell Discord is just as helpful, but one, the time to spend there, I don't necessarily have it, and two is I don't know that. I don't feel like my stuff gets to that level.
Yeah, you can see in the comments here in the chat. Okay, yes. So a couple other things I wanted to bring up before we all jump. So next Tuesday, I believe that's right, March 5th. There's gonna be another Ninja webinar. And we're gonna have Gavin Stone, one of the leader on the product management team. Everybody knows Gavin. It's going to be him and I believe Jeff Hunter. They're going to be walking through a bunch of new out-of-box scripts, which are going to be available on Ninja. And so that's another good chance to go in and see what's available within Ninja and also get pick their brains on things. So that's going to be, that's right, Gabsto. Good to see you, Ben.
I think so. It was Jeff that did. Sorry, I was going to say. I think as far as other resources, this script, I think Jeff actually did a YouTube video recently where he walked through like using the devices and the new version search and app searches to filter for devices that have Screen Connect installed, and then use the script that we went over here to gather some more information about it. And he actually did more with it than I realized. Like I didn't go through and do the new custom or the new inventory searches like he did. So I actually learned stuff from his video where he in turn used my script. So it was a great thing there. And of course, resources. I mean, the script template that Ninja has a ton of PowerShell script templates inside of Ninja that you can import from the script library and automations. I haven't had a chance to go through all of those. My understanding is there are like 60 new scripts or updated scripts that were just posted in there in the last week or so. And so that's pretty amazing, and I'm looking forward to having the time to go through and do some cool stuff with those as well. So the PowerShell scripting team inside of Ninja, while they don't most of them seem to stay out of Discord and probably focused on actually writing scripts, they seem to be very good at what they are doing, and their output quality is very high. And I've actually based some of my tweaks and scripts on some of the stuff from that Ninja's put out. I've reused little functions and pieces of code that they've put out in even on the blog. I know Ninja's posted some great blog posts with some security scripts and stuff. And the thing I love about it is they're never Ninja specific. Everything that's on the blog where they post publicly is completely usable by anybody on any RMM, and not just hey, here's the fix for the Ninja folks. It's very much here's the fix for anybody, and you can use it in Ninja too, which is the awesome community oriented nature.
Thank you for calling that out, David. You made me have to pull some more links there. So I dropped links to Jeff's video you referenced, and also all the script posts. But yeah, thanks for calling out. And they are busy. They're more lurkers, I think, in the Discord, and we can tag them and heckle as warranted. Okay, last thing. So with this, we're gonna and with March coming up, we're all such big sports ball fans, right? I mean, all of us. So March Madness is coming up. Listen, I do like basketball, but aside from that, I'm not a big sports fan, but I love brackets of any kind. Like, give me a competition where there's a bracket system and voting involved, and I'm totally here for it.
Square brackets or curly braces or no? Parentheses, no.
And yes, Wilt. Now I'll drag some people on here for the next one. Okay, so sports ball, the March Madness, the big NCAA basketball tournament's going to be happening. We figured, interest in that may vary, but let's do a script bracket, and we didn't want to make this like a Ninja versus the community thing. So we wanted to make it just for community members. Robin has created a new channel in Discord. So it's under, let's see here. It's going to be under community scripting, and it is called Scripting Madness. And you'll see some basic info. We're going to be adding some additional clarification around some things there. But basically, we want folks to submit scripts there, and we'll use the thumbs up emoji reactions from community members to judge who makes it into a bracket round, and then we'll do some some head-to-head competition and voting later on the end of the month. We have from today, we're officially opening it up for submissions today until 2 weeks from today, which I believe is March 13th. Am I right about that? Let's see. Let's open up a calendar. Yes, March 13th to submit a script. This does not have to be a new script. It can be something that you've had for a while. People can submit more than one, but only one from each specific submitter will be able to make it through. So it's not going to be like 16 of your scripts, David, battling it out. Also, I was thinking, I wanted to talk with you and Mikey and maybe a couple others, and maybe talk with you about, like, do you want to be participants, or do you want to be like part of the editorial, like the judging team or the commentary team? Because we definitely want to encourage people, use this as an opportunity to encourage people to practice and try things. We don't want to discourage people thinking like, oh man, there's no chance I'll win. So anyway, we're launching this contest. We're going to give away some cool prizes for the 16 that make it into the bracket. We're looking into some challenge coins. And then for a grand prize, we're looking at a standing desk with some really cool headphones going to also the Final Four members. So there's cool prizes. And again, the whole point is just to like encourage people to do what we were talking about here, share, learn from each other. And yes, Mikey and Mark judging, you say, judging people. Here we go.
I'm just trying to realize you're still talking about PowerShell in somewhere, because you said sports ball and my brain's off like, okay, stop listening. And you're like, oh, talking about PowerShell. I'm like, what? You're talking about PowerShell scripts again? What? And you're combining it with sports ball? No.
Sorry for the tossing the curveball there. But it is. These are PowerShell scripts that we want people to submit. And we're going to pick a group of 16 to kind of go through a tournament of like, which one is the best one? And obviously that's going to be comparing apples and oranges a little bit, but hopefully it's fun. We're going to give away some cool prizes, and hopefully it's a good way to encourage, you watching or members of your team to get in and share some things. And throughout this month of March, we're also going to be sharing more things like this, tutorials to help with that too. So that's our plan. We hope that people participate.
Benjamin says Kelvin should referee, and he might make calls like ill-advised use of plus equals in an array, 30-second penalty, repeat second inning.
Amazing.
Which all makes sense to me. 100%. I'm pretty sure that's
I do.
Football and baseball combined anyway.
Hey. Yeah, basketball rules. I like it. I like the penalties and flags and things like that. We'll have some fun with it. But more to come on that. But it is open officially now. Like, I'm gonna grab the link to the channel if folks want to have something they want to toss in now. But we'll provide some more info and give a little plug for this during the webinar next Tuesday as well. Okay, so David, you've stayed on past the hour. Thank you so much. You're super busy. I'm sure you have like tons of notifications that have been going off that you've silenced or whatever.
I gotta go read all the new posts in Discord that I missed while everybody else was still talking. Mikey said that the PowerShell scripts like a ninja is always obfuscate your code. Don't use a mechanical keyboard so you can work silently and distract your targets with irrelevant tangents and code pathways. And some additional people said eat pizza and add Easter eggs. I can get along with all of those. So I think I had the wrong session idea here. Thanks for correcting me on that. But appreciate you hanging out nonetheless. It was a lot of fun.
Oh man,
go scripting ball, as Mikey says.
Yes, I love it. David, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being awesome and being who you are. This community is great, and we'll see you soon.
For organizing and doing all that fun community stuff along with you too, Jonathan.
Yeah, appreciate absolutely. Brittany as well. But no, you guys are the best. We appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.